Hello everyone, welcome again to Cyclone InCYders. I'm Logan Murata, and once again joined alongside we have Taylor Mankel and Rachel Given. So guys, it's March, the madness is among us. When we left off last week, we predicted the Cyclones would run through both Kansas State and Oklahoma State on Saturday and Monday. And then tonight in InCYders, we're going to take a look at both of those performances. But first, let's see what happened on Saturday as the Cyclones took on Kansas State. We had our own Rachel Given there. Let's see what happened.
He's Mexican.
When I talk.
Yeah,
Oh.
What was the second part of the sentence there?
Hilton Coliseum for one of the last regular season conference games. Stars of the games were juniors Monte Morris and Matt Thomas, who helped bring the team to leads in hard times. The game started slow with many missed shots for the Cyclones. Senior forward Jameel McKay's classic dunks and shots in the paint kept Iowa State afloat. In the second half, junior Matt Thomas hit 2 3-pointers in a row. The crowd went wild as Iowa State took the lead. Senior George DeYang also hit a 3, cushioning the score. Even crowd favorite Stu Neslick made an appearance during the game. Iowa State would go on to finish the game with a W, final score being 80-61. That's all I have for you on this game. Han Wong and Laurel Feeks have you on Monday night's recap. For InCYders with Lauren Wilcox, I'm Rachel Given.
Thank you for that, Rachel. Good stuff.
Good job.
Thank you.
Good job. Nearly a 20-point win against the Wildcats. That's the kind of performance you want to see at the end of the season, especially against a lower-end team in the Big 12 and in Hilton, above all. But this was kind of a back-and-forth match in the first half. But in the second, we saw something we haven't seen all season, in my opinion, or at least since early season. You know, the Cyclones outscored the Wildcats 49-31, and we saw a spark off the bench and Hallis Cook, who had 10 points.
That's my boy.
Yep, and a revitalized Jameel McKay, who looked like himself running the floor, snagging 17 rebounds.
Yeah.
Did either of these guys get your game ball, Taylor?
I think it's an easy game ball, the Jameel McKay. I mean, you look at the performance, like you said, bounce back to say the least. Jameel McKay drops in 31 minutes, adds 14 points and 17 rebounds, absolutely huge. He was back on energy. He had 3 blocks in this game, and he shot 6 of 9 from the field, only missing 3 shots from the field. It was a great night from Jameel. You could see him interacting with the crowd as he loves to do. You saw him interacting with his counterparts as he loves to do. It looked like he was having fun out there, which we hadn't seen in quite some time. I think it's an easy ball to Jameel McKay on a bounce-back performance.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to agree. I'm going to go with McKay as well. And for the same reasons, you know, this is the highest scoring performance we've seen from McKay since early January.
Yeah.
And the 17 rebounds were huge, and it tied his season high for boards. So very vintage Jameel McKay. Exciting to see that back in Hilton. Did you make a consensus pick?
I did. I also picked McKay. Even though it's been a roller coaster season for him, he's got his head back in the game after being on the bench for a little bit. I also thought Burton had a really good game.
Yeah.
He's just been doing really well lately as a new kid on the team, so I've definitely been having him on my radar.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you had two starters who either had foul trouble or a poor shooting performance. Abdel Nader, who's been on fire lately, just kind of had a slump in this one. 1 for 9 shooting.
Yeah.
And then Deontay Burton, not a bad shooting night, but 4 fouls. So, I mean,
Didn't play much, yeah.
Yeah, he didn't play a whole lot. So how big was it having Cook step up in this one? We'll start with you, Rachel. What do you think about Hallis Cook?
I definitely think he stepped up and helped get the team out of the rut in the first half. We did not do very well with a lot of turnovers and missed shots, but definitely he helped us get out and win the game in the second.
Yeah, definitely. And a couple weeks ago, Mankel, you pointed out the fact that he should have been starting over Jordan Ashton, and it seems like that time has finally come. And, you know, I agree. Nothing against Ashton, but Cook definitely has seen much more Power 5 conference play. He looked more polished out there, especially on the defensive end. And he had a big block. I don't know if it was against Oklahoma State or Kansas State, but it was nice seeing those big kind of spark off the bench plays.
Absolutely.
What did you think about Cook?
I'll tell you what, I loved what I saw.
Yep.
I mean, I've been telling you guys all season long, Hallis Cook can play some good ball. You know, he is the key to the future of this team this season. I believe that if they use him to the right amount, I suppose, that this team can be way more promising and go way further than without him or with Jordan Ashton in substitution of him. 24 minutes and 10 points is just a sliver of what you can get from him, considering this is the first time you've seen him get these kind of minutes in important games. I mean, this game, when he was playing big minutes, he was playing them in the first half and in the second half, so you can't say he was just in because the game was out of reach, because in that first half, it was pretty close for a good amount of that first half.
Yeah, definitely.
And he was playing big minutes in there. He was allowing Monte Morris to sit down, take a breather, which is huge for this team because, like Monte Morris said 3 weeks ago, they're playing for longevity here towards the end of the season.
Yeah, definitely. And you answered a couple of my next questions, but, it's just nice seeing Prohm to, when they're playing the lower end team, the Big 12 like Kansas State, to see him, make some changes, kind of mix it up a little bit, especially when they're having that slow start in Hilton in the first half. So that was nice seeing that. Do you think Cook will get more minutes, and do you think he'll be a factor in March for the Cyclones?
I don't think he'll get any more playtime unless we're in a really big slump.
Okay.
Come on.
We have a solid starting lineup, and I think Prohm really wants to showcase that before George and other seniors leave. But I definitely think his time is coming next year, for sure.
So obviously some disagreement here at the desk. But, moving on, we'll move on to Monday. Leave that where it is, but we'll see how Hollis Cook does going forward. Moving on to Monday, it was senior night for Jameel McKay, Abdel Nader, most notably four-year senior George Niang.
Yeah.
And before we delve into this one, we had Han Wong and Laurel Feeks at the game. Let's check out the recap they had against Oklahoma State on Monday.
The magic was alive for senior night in Hilton on Monday. Iowa State took on Oklahoma State for George Niang's last game. Cyclone Nation honored Jameel McKay, Abdel Nader, and Niang before the game. It was the night of Niang as he grabbed the first 4 buckets of the night and tallying 10 points in the first half. Nader also had a great senior night, nabbing 10 points and going 3 of 3 at the line.
With a pretty even first half, Iowa State needed a push, and that's exactly what they got as the Cowboys could not weather the storm during the second half.
Nader had another great half with a massive dunk to gain momentum for the Clones. Niang, Nader, and McKay had a tearful end to their Iowa State careers, but Prohm said this is not the last of Niang.
Future head coach, so that's down the line, so I'll stay here a while. So.
As Cyclone Alley says goodbye, this will definitely not be the last of these 3 seniors.
Iowa State took home the W 58-50. The Cyclones will take on the Jayhawks at Fog Allen on Saturday at 3 p.m. on ESPN.
For iState News with Catherine Kuckelman, I'm Laurel Feeks.
Well, good stuff there. No better way to cap off senior night than with a win, but a single-digit win at that, 58-50, the final. And it was a game where I felt like it was a bigger win at times than the final margin showed. But this was still like a defensive game, in my opinion. When you look at the stat sheet, a season-low 58 points for State, and then no Cowboys in double digits scoring. Why do you think that was the case? Or, what was your view on this game? Mako, we'll start with you.
Well, it was the 2-3 zone for Iowa State. It was fantastic in this game. Granted, Iowa State's offense just didn't make shots towards the end of the game. That's why they dropped only 58 in there. But what I look at big in this game is the only 50 points that OSU scored. That 2-3 zone that Steve Prohm implemented was awesome in this game. It shut down Oklahoma State. There were stretches of 5 to 6 minutes where they did not score in this game, and I think it worked to perfection against a team who Iowa State wanted them to take threes. And they could potentially, and probably will potentially, play teams like this in the Big 12 tourney and the NCAA tournament, and I would love to see this 2-3 zone again. It was absolutely monstrous in this game. Loved it.
Yeah, I would like to see that 2-3 zone more as well, especially against teams where we've had trouble with guards that are driving to the basket.
Yeah.
Just easy buckets at the hoop. I think that 2-3 zone will be huge going forward if Prohm continues that. What was your view on this game, Rachel?
I'm going to have to completely agree with Taylor. I really liked the zones. I really liked how the spurts of the other team not scoring, of Oklahoma not scoring, it just really got them their heads out of the game. So.
Yeah, and I thought this was just a big game for the seniors. They each had their moments where, especially Nader with the big dunks. Niang had a good game. McKay didn't have double-digit points, but still a solid performance.
Yeah.
But, the other players didn't really have big scoring nights or anything. So a close game, but I still think a good win for the Cyclones. To commemorate these 3 seniors, I want you guys to name your favorite performance or maybe memory you have of these players. We'll start with you, Rachel. And you're only a first year here, but what's your favorite memories of these 3 seniors?
Okay, so starting off with Nader, I'm gonna definitely say his dunk from Monday's game was intense. And then Twitter just blew up after that game too, and it was just funny to see everything, like the gifts and stuff going on. That was pretty cool. For Niang, I know it sounds kind of weird, but I camped out for the Kansas game for a couple nights, and he knocked on my tent and started talking to me and my friend Lauren, and I thought that was super cool, and we got a picture, and of course, so that was pretty cool.
Cool stuff.
Yeah, that is a good story.
Yeah, it's cooler than any of the stuff I have, but I'm gonna have to agree with the Nader dunk. That I think was probably one of his biggest highlights here at Iowa State.
Highlight?
Highlight dunk. It was awesome. Total poster. SportsCenter top 10 play. Also, the other one I had was this big step-up performance against Iowa. It was really the coming-out party, the first time we saw Abdel Nader unveiled, and it was a big spot when Bryce DeJean-Jones had the suspension. He stepped up. I thought that was a good time for Nader. And then McKay, for me, I think just one of my favorites was when you first saw him come out, and we really hadn't had a defensive anchor for quite some time, and seeing him just get some monster blocks in that first year was just exciting. But the most notable play I think I'll remember him for was it was after ESPN had come here for the Kansas game, and he had that big alley-oop poster dunk. I think it was over Landon Lucas or something like that. I can't remember who it was, but just total poster dunk. Crowd went crazy. That I'm always going to remember that play for McKay. And then Niang, where do you start? There's so many memories of that guy. I think one of my favorites would be when I think it was in the Big 12 tournament. He took that elbow, came back out with the bandage on the face.
Yeah,
That's one of my favorites. But plenty of good tournament memories, in-game memories. Another one is when we beat Iowa here at, it was 2 seasons ago now, and he hit that reverse layup at the end of the game. So just good stuff from George all around. What do you have of your favorite memories?
First off, to start with Nader, I had Nader versus Iowa in Iowa City. I was calling that game for KURE, and it was really a good game, a very good game for Iowa State. They dominated Iowa basically throughout, and Nader, that was really his coming out party. He had those 2 very good games last season. He really wasn't at the same level he is now as he was last season. He had that game against Iowa where he propelled Iowa State to a very good win, and then he also played well against West Virginia. Those are very high on my list as well. Last year, his breaking out performances, because you didn't expect it as much as you do this year. For Jameel McKay, I have Jameel against Oklahoma State in Stillwater last year. Jameel, in that game, played 26 minutes, and he dropped in 17 points and 14 rebounds. But why I remember this game is because going into this game, everyone in Cyclone Nation was so worried about his free throw shooting. So Okie State decided to hack a shack against Jameel McKay, and Jameel went to the line, and he shot 13 of 18 from the line, shut him up. Iowa State won the game. It was a memorable performance by Jameel. And then for George Niang, I just loved how he embraced the Iowa State-Iowa rivalry. All of his antics on Twitter, and definitely on the court, like blowing the kiss in Iowa City, and then the reverse layup and all the Twitter battles that went on after that, always saying it's a Cyclone State in his press conferences. All of that's beautiful. Coming from a guy from Massachusetts, coming to Iowa State, being a part of Cyclone Nation, totally buying in is something you want out of players coming to your school. And you don't see it that often. Iowa State isn't that big of a name, but George Niang personifies that.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely what you want to see out of a 4-year staple player at your school. Obviously a great career for all 3 of these guys who contributed to this great era of Cyclone basketball we've seen. But we're going to toss it a break for right now. When we come back, we're going to preview the Cyclones' upcoming game against number 1 Kansas at Fog Allen. Stay tuned. You're watching Insiders. Welcome back from the break. So the Cyclones had 2 easy matchups last week, but they're going to get a much tougher one on Saturday. Iowa State will travel down to Lawrence, Kansas, Fog Allen Fieldhouse, one of the toughest places to play in the nation. Place where the Jayhawks are unblemished this year, 16-0 at home. I mean, what would be the key for the Cyclones to pull off any chance of a shock against number one team at home? It's senior night. What do you think, Michael?
I think the 2-3 defense is huge. I mentioned it earlier, and I think it rings true in this one as well. I think that 2-3 defense could stop a lot of the problems that you saw in the earlier matchup. Even though Iowa State won that game, there was a big problem with Monte Morris not being able to keep a body to Frank Mason. Frank Mason could get to the hole and get to the line with ease that entire game. They went away from it in the second half for I don't know what reason, but if this 2-3 defense continues to work and they have the movement they need to, both from the guards up top and the 3 men down low, I think that can be a good way to defend against that. And of course, it does give away some open 3-pointers, but Kansas hasn't been as prolific from behind the arc this year, so I think that might be something you want to give a try. And I also think Hallis Cook is the key.
Okay.
Hallis Cook. You got to get big minutes out of Hallis Cook to win this game.
You heard it from Michael. Cook.
For
watching
every week from Michael.
Yeah,
Come
if you're
on.
watching Cook, Michael loves you, wants you
#1
on the
fan.
court.
Yeah. Let's go.
I got to agree, though. I think the guard play from Kansas is going to be the X factor in this one, especially on the defensive end for us, or for Iowa State, excuse me. I think they need to stop Devontae Graham from being any kind of prolific scorer, as well as Frank Mason.
Sure.
Brandon Green might hit a 3 or here or there, but I think the key will be stopping those 2 guards. Perry Ellis is probably going to get his, usual 12 and 10 or 15, 10, somewhere around that range. So I think the key will be stopping the guard play, and I think Monte Morris needs to be an effective scorer in this one.
I agree.
In the past few matchups, we've had different players step up. There's been, Hallis Cook and Abdel Nader. I think Morris scoring the ball and driving and getting to the free throw line will be huge for the Cyclones. How about you, Rachel?
Yeah, I also agree with Morris, but I also think Morris and Niang could work together more in the duo. Morris really knows how to put the ball in the right area for Niang to score. So I think if they both put their game at the top of their game, then I think it'll be a victory.
Yeah, definitely. And we saw a really good game from Matt Thomas last time. I thought he was a really effective defender, and he hit big shots. So I think, especially, it's at Kansas, so keeping the momentum in your favor, keeping it a close game, not letting runs get out of hand, I think that will be big. And I think leaning on Matt Thomas, hitting some threes here and there or making a momentum play will be huge.
You're going to need threes in this game out of Iowa State, and they're
Yeah.
going to need to make a big percentage of most of their shots to stand a chance here.
Yeah, and like I said last week, ISU has just won 15 of their 106 games in Fog Allen, a tough place to play. Last time was in 04-05. I believe that was a Curtis Stinson.
Curtis Stinson.
Yep, and Will
My
Blaylock,
man.
I think, somewhere around that era. So that was an overtime win. Not even the best team Iowa State's had, but do you think they're due for another win? We'll start with you on this one, Rachel. What's your prediction for this one with a score?
I think they definitely need a win. I think Kansas will win, though, with a close score, 86-84.
Okay.
Yeah. I like the optimism. I as much as I would love to Iowa State to win this one, it's at Kansas. It's senior night. These guys have just been on a tear lately.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep it a close one as well. I'm going to say 85-80 Kansas in this one. I think it'll be a good game. I think it'll come down to a late free throw, something like that. How about you, Michael?
I don't think this one is going to be really close. I think it's going to be one of those scores that you look back at and say, it could have been worse, but it never feels really good throughout the game. I've got 84-74 in favor of KU, obviously. I think they're just head and toes above Iowa State in almost all aspects. I would love to see Iowa State beat Kansas in their own house. Nothing would cheer me up more, but it's just not in the cards this year. Kansas is a way better team, and Iowa State doesn't have the pieces, nor the depth, nor the defense to keep up with them.
So I'm going to put you on the spot just a little bit with the follow-up.
Do it.
I mean, what do you think was the key then in the first matchup between these two? It was at Hilton, granted, but what do you think is going to be the big difference in this game? I mean, from that point to now.
I think the big difference is depth.
Yeah.
Iowa State has had a couple games where they have gotten away with not using any depth. You can't do that on the road. Doesn't matter it just does not happen where you have those performances where all your starting five gets into double digits and you have a great game throughout there. It's not going to happen on the road. It never will for Iowa State, and they need depth, and I don't think the coaching will have the depth against that very good home court advantage. No offense to Steve Prohm or anything. He's a great coach. He's done great things this year for Iowa State, but it's just too big of a task for them. I don't think they have the depth, nor do I think they have the defense to keep up with all of Kansas's options on the offensive end.
Yeah, and I think there's no coach better than Bill Self, maybe even in the country, to making adjustments after a loss. I think I don't remember the last time Kansas lost in a sweep to another team in a regular season in the Big 12. But Bill Self always makes good adjustments, and I think after seeing what the Cyclones had to offer in this one, it was a little bit different team than you've seen in the past couple of years, depth and position-wise. But I think Bill Self will make the adjustments, and I think they'll play a solid game. But in the event of a win, we'll turn the page a little bit to the Big 12 tournament. The Cyclones will likely jump a spot or two, or at least maintain their spot in the Big 12 standings. Looking at the possible bracket, if we can get that up, they're going to finish either a 3, 4, 5, or 6, meaning they're going to match up against one of these three teams, Oklahoma, Texas, and Baylor. Not the best draw of teams, but who would you like to most see, or who do you think who would be the best draw for the Cyclones? We'll start with you on this one, Rachel.
I think it would be Oklahoma. The Cyclones.
Wow, Oklahoma, okay. That's a tough match, but all right.
I think it's better than Baylor.
Okay.
I think the Cyclones had an awesome run against Oklahoma and Hilton, and obviously it was in Hilton, which kind of helped. But I think it's a different game when you're not in Hilton, and I still think it would be entertaining, and it'd be really cool to see how the Cyclones do against them again.
Yeah, and they played well. I mean, these top two teams, Oklahoma and Texas, both they got comebacks on last in the Big 12 tournament last year. So I think that'll be interesting seeing a rematch in both of those. I went with I think the best draw would be Texas. Just personally, I think Texas is not the best team out of these three. I think Baylor matches up the best against Iowa State. Texas has kind of been one of those 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of teams. They'll come out with these big momentum wins, and then they'll drop a game at home by 20 points or something like that. Shaka Smart's a great coach, but a little inconsistent. So I'd like to see this matchup, especially after Monte's big shot last year to start off that Big 12 tournament. So I went with Texas. Did you go with Texas as well?
Yeah, I think it's an easy pick here for Texas. They just don't know how to properly play their big men against Iowa State. I don't know what it is. The past about 3 years, they've always had the size advantage against Iowa State, and they don't really use it to the level that they need to. They have to get the ball inside and pound it against the forwards of Iowa State, get them in foul trouble, and they just don't do that. They allow Iowa State to run their game and run their defense on Texas. I think this is the best matchup by far for Iowa State, even with 1 loss on the year against Texas in Austin. I think by far this is the best draw. Baylor's a mismatch nightmare for Iowa State every time they play them. Doesn't matter this circumstance, if at home, if it's away. It's a nightmare for Iowa State every single time. In Oklahoma, I still think Oklahoma is one of the best teams in the nation, and you never want to play one of the best teams in the nation.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I will give you credit because Oklahoma has been kind of slumping lately. So, I could see that perspective for sure. But Oklahoma is a good shooting team. So I think any of these teams would be a tough draw. But I think Texas
is the Big 12.
Would be the lesser evil in this case. Which brings me to my last segment, though. Your guys' final regular season Big 12 picks. We got a few on here. We have Oklahoma at TCU. I think this will be a consensus pick, but we'll start with you, Rachel. Are you going Sooners on this one? You picked against them last time. Okay.
I am this time.
All right, it is at TCU. I am going to go Sooners on this one. I think this is a must-win. They've been slumping, so I think they'll bounce back this week. Consensus?
Boomer.
Okay, and then we'll start with you on this one. K-State at Texas Tech. Tech's been on a run. K-State not so much.
Yeah, Tech not so much the last couple games, but they have knocked in some very key wins to get them in the tourney conversation. I think they will make the big tourney if they win at least 1 game in the Big 12 conference tourney. And so I'm going to give it to them. They're at home. Lubbock is starting to become better and better of a home court advantage, especially since Tubby Smith has got there. I really like what he's doing with this team.
Yeah, a lot of marquee wins at home for Texas Tech this year, so I'm going to go Red Raiders as well. Consensus?
Same.
All right, and then the last one, this one will have a little bit of different picks, I think. West Virginia at Baylor. I think this is probably the Big 12 game of the week, excluding Iowa State, Kansas.
Yeah.
And it might even eclipse that. But West V at Baylor. What do you think about this one? Baylor's a tough place to play.
Yeah.
West V, they've been playing great basketball this year. What do you think?
Baylor can play very well against certain teams.
Yeah.
West Virginia is not one of those teams. West Virginia is more physical than Baylor. West Virginia has the defense that can slow Baylor down. West Virginia has the physicality that will stop Rico Gathers and Jonathan Motley, unlike Iowa State can. That's why Baylor's such a mismatch for Iowa State, but not for West Virginia. I think West Virginia takes this one pretty handedly.
Yeah, and I would agree with that assessment. I think Baylor's got the long athletes, and then West Virginia's got the big, strong athletes who can pressure. I think this would be a huge momentum win for Baylor, obviously. And I think they've got the length, the athleticism. I think the key will be the guard play. I think Lester Medford needs to handle the ball well and beat that press. I will take the Bears in this one in a close matchup. I think this will be a great game, though. We'll see how that goes. But Rachel, what do you have?
I also have Baylor. I think Baylor has something very similar to Hilton Magic.
Okay.
Not the same, but similar.
What?
Baylor is just really awesome at home, and I
What?
definitely think that.
Nah, Gary. No. Have you seen the upper deck in Waco, Texas? I will not sit here. It is poor. It is porous. Most Big 12 places outside Hilton are porous, but go on, please.
That's all I had.
Okay.
I will give Baylor the credit. Since they've amped up their basketball game, the crowd has improved, especially that student section.
Thanks, Logan.
Not quite Hilton Magic, though.
I
But
said that.
Blasphemy.
absolutely blasphemous. But on a higher note here, we'll end the show without some controversy. The Oscars were on Sunday, and I'm a huge movie buff. There were a lot of great movies this year.
There were.
Creed specifically, I think, was one of the best sports movies.
Loved Creed.
As well as Concussion, I heard was pretty good. I didn't get a chance to see that yet. But we'll start with you on this one, Rachel. What was your favorite movie of this last year, and then what's your all-time favorite sports movie?
Favorite movie of last year, Inside Out.
Inside Out. I can't believe that was nominated for Best Picture.
I know.
I don't know.
Well, it was the fourth grossing in the entire year, and it got $356 million. I thought it was really good. I went through happiness and sadness. I went through all of my emotions.
Oh, man.
All right,
No
Taylor,
judging.
Did you go with Inside Out?
I did not go with Inside Out. I did not go with the Pixar movie for my best movie of the year. Taste is a little different. It's just a little bit.
Yeah.
I went with The Revenant here.
Okay.
A Best Picture nominee. Fantastic movie. A journey of a man searching for revenge. Definitely, if you haven't seen it yet, see it for sure. Leo deserves every last bit of that Oscar.
All right, and then I had to agree. Revenant, great movie. I mean, I love
Inside Out.
Inside Out. Are you kidding me? I love The Revenant, though. Just a gritty frontiersman movie.
Yeah.
I like that. And, revenge classic movie theme. Always love that. And then my all-time favorite sports movie, I had a kind of a tie here. Two movies I grew up with. Space Jam, one of them.
Love it.
Gotta love Space Jam.
Yep.
One of the most underrated soundtracks, I'm going to say, too. That was a great soundtrack.
It was awesome. Chris Rock's track on that?
Oh,
Chris
Basketball
Rock,
Jones?
Basketball Jones.
That is a classic. Fly like an eagle, good stuff. And then my other one is The Sandlot. I remember putting the VHS in, watching that with my dad just about every day. So many classic one-liners in that one. What was your favorite sports movie?
I like Miracle.
Miracle?
Miracle's a good one.
Okay, that's a good
That's a
one.
good one.
And a pretty accurately told story from what I've told. The movie
yes.
adaptation was
I've
actually
heard
pretty
that
accurate. Then what'd you go with for yours?
Well, if we're allowing ties, I'll give I'll put Space Jam up there for my kids' sports movie, and then for the more adult movies, Rocky. Rocky's one of my favorite movies of all time, sports or not.
Yeah.
Fantastic movie.
Definitely a classic. What's your favorite Rocky? The first one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rocky. Number one. Rocky is the best Rocky movie.
All right, well, you heard it here. That's all we have for tonight's Insiders, though. Join us next week, same time, same place. Have a great weekend, Ames.